This is CBC Nova Scotia News.
Tonight, Fiona funding. Ottawa gives some Cape Breton businesses a boost as they continue to rebuild after the 2022 hurricane.
Petitioning for change. A Halifax teenager calls for better accessibility at her junior high school.
And the Donkin Dilemma. Roof falls and close calls. Is the world's only subsea coal mine safe?
Some wet weather tonight into Wednesday morning with some lingering showers into the afternoon, but a larger system looming for Wednesday night in through Thursday. Your full forecast is coming up.
Good evening. A year and a half ago, Hurricane Fiona caused widespread damage throughout the province. Cape Breton Island bore the brunt of the storm, and the repairs and cleanup continue.
Many businesses in the region are still picking up the pieces, and today they received a little help from the federal government. Aaron Potty reports.
Hurricane Fiona was an unprecedented storm that wreaked havoc in Cape Breton. It tore down trees, power lines, and damaged many homes and businesses. The Insurance Bureau of Canada has since estimated the storm caused more than $385 million in insured damages. To help get communities back on their feet, ACOA has announced another $6 million to affected businesses and organizations.
Unfortunately, our shipyard was in the direct eye of the hurricane.
Tony Kennedy is co-owner and president of the North Sydney ship repair business, Canadian Maritime Engineering. Fiona tore apart their wharf, breakwater, and piers, making it impossible for ships to dock for repairs.
We had boulders, 6-8 ton boulders that were dislodged and deposited on our marine railway. The heavy underwater impact was something that's hard to fathom from a storm when you're seeing it from the top side. So it's not only the top side damage, it was the under subsea damage that created a lot of the problems for us.
CME received a large portion of the federal funding, nearly $5 million. That money will be used to replace things such as wharf piles and decking. The firm regularly works with clients such as Marine Atlantic, the Canadian Navy, and the Coast Guard.
We have been able to attract some of the work back into the yard. We've had to absorb more cost in handling the vessels, but essentially we've come up with some workarounds as a temporary measure. But again, this funding has allowed us to fast track the work and get ourselves back in business as quick as possible.
$1.2 million of the funding will go to the municipality, allowing it to purchase a new generator and carry out electrical work at Centre 200. CBRM Mayor Amanda McDougall says the entertainment venue will act as an emergency coordination center and comfort center when the next major storm hits.
These are all things that municipalities typically had not been, I guess you could say, investing in because we would rely on the province. Now we know with the frequency and severity of these types of emergency situations, we have to be prepared and we have to take a leadership role.
Two other organizations that were given funding are Harness Racing Cape Breton, which took in $99,000 to replace a busted scoreboard, and the Baylard Recreation Association, which was given $20,000 needed to purchase equipment for trail repairs. Aaron Potty, CBC News, Sydney.
All Saints Spring Hill Hospital in Spring Hill is temporarily closed after an electrical fire last night. The health authority says 21 inpatients have been transferred to other sites within the Northern Health Zone or discharged to their homes. The Collaborative Emergency Center is also closed. The Spring Hill Fire Department says the fire was the result of a faulty heat motor which caused smoke damage. It was quickly extinguished once located. The hospital will reopen after an assessment and remediation. The authority said anyone with urgent medical needs should call 911.
Halifax is considering fast-tracking more firefighters for Upper Tantallon. Last spring, the department had a massive response to the historic wildfire in the area that displaced 16,000 people and destroyed 150 homes. The municipality's proposed $92 million budget includes converting a station in Upper Tantallon or Hammonds Plains to have career members present 24/7. That would mean 15 new firefighters. The recruits would be trained next February. Area Councillor Pam Lovelace says the additional supports are needed.
But I do think that it's well beyond time that this community, which continues to exist in an extreme wildfire area, as well as the fact that we still have deficits with regards to egress.
Council will decide whether or not to fund those firefighters later this month.
A Halifax teenager has launched a petition calling for improved accessibility at her school for students who use mobility aids. As Gareth Hampshire tells us, her main focus is about one classroom that is not currently accessible.
Hundreds of people have signed Lux Melançon's petition since it was posted in the window of her mum's store. She has identified an issue at Fairview Junior High, where she's a grade 9 student. As part of a school project, she created the petition, which calls for a chairlift to the floor of the tech ed room, so it's accessible for students who use mobility aids.
People can't get down there because the school does have an elevator, but the elevator does not go down to that floor. It only goes to the first and second floors. It doesn't go to the basement, which is where the tech ed room is.
She is able to get there, even though stairs can be challenging for her too. She has cerebral palsy that affects her balance, and she knows what it's like not to be able to take part in things.
It gets me so upset that I can't imagine how upsetting it must be for somebody to not be able to take part in a whole class.
It's friends like Journey Leach she is campaigning for. The 12-year-old takes tech ed next term. Other students who use mobility aids they know have been doing their assignments in other classroom spaces, which they don't like.
Part of being a student is being with a group of children.
Their mum was looking at Clayton Park as their next school, but was advised Fairview was the best option, and she did not know about this issue.
The fact that we were sent to the school that was supposed to be the accessible school for our family of schools to not have been informed that part of that school was not accessible to Journey, it was a little shocking.
In a statement, the Halifax Centre for Education said it was recognized earlier this year that a lower-level classroom was not accessible. It said the school leadership team sought an immediate remedy and decided a stairlift is the best solution. A follow-up email said the lift will be ready for use by March 31st. Lux Melançon is pleased to see it's going to happen.
I will mostly just be happy for all my fellow students who will be able to get to that room.
Gareth Hampshire, CBC News, Halifax.
Nova Scotia's universities and colleges will find out at the end of the month how many international student applications each will receive. The province's advanced department says the federal government has allocated 12,900 applications for all Nova Scotia institutions. Minister Brian Wong says the department is spending the next few weeks trying to find out what he called a, quote, fair and just way to distribute the applications. The province had 19,000 applications this academic year. A new cap follows concerns from Ottawa about housing availability for international students and recruiters that take advantage of them. Well, if I had my choice of days, I would say yesterday was my pick of the week, but today was mild.
Today was pretty good, and I think we're downhill from there, right?
Yeah, a solid reminder that we are still in early March in the Maritimes, and Mother Nature will bring us a reminder of that. Yeah, quiet out there right now, and we do have some wet weather tracking in tonight and throughout the day tomorrow, but this really is just the appetizer with the full meal deal brewing off into the southwest parts of the U.S. right now, and this is what's going to be coming in tomorrow night and Thursday and even into Thursday night. So yeah, that appetizer, that brings 5 to 15 millimeters of rain tonight into tomorrow morning, some fog patches to contend with, certainly enough to bring the umbrella or the rain jacket with you tomorrow. Primarily in the morning though, the afternoon, that sails out pretty quiet in the afternoon, couple of lingering showers. Temperatures tomorrow are going to be quite mild again, 6, 10, even some 11 and 12 degree temperatures. Best chance of that is going to be the valley and also into the Northumberland shore. Pretty solid day all around, but do be mindful of those fog patches. And then, yes, Wednesday night, Thursday night, and again, a lot of moving parts with this, but in green, the Atlantic coastline, this is going to be our greatest risk of some localized flooding. Heavy rain with this. 30, 40, 50, 60 millimeters possible. Areas in the north are going to start as rain, but then will transition through freezing rain. Possibility in pink here of significant freezing rain, especially late Thursday through Thursday evening into the overnight. And if you are traveling Charlottetown, Moncton, Fredericton, 15 plus centimeters. The possibility also extends to the Highlands and also Cumberland County. So again, a lot of moving parts. The big takeaways, Thursday is going to be very wet to start. Periods of rain at times heavy. Note the mixing here. Amherst first, then down to the Truro, New Glasgow, Kentville, the Valley into the afternoon and evening. That's where that significant freezing rain threat is going to exist. That heavy rain continues along the Atlantic coast. Then, even along the Atlantic coast, we likely get into some freezing rain through Thursday evening, then over to ice pellets and snow, and this will finally all depart on Friday morning. So, yeah, again, a lot of moving parts with this, Tom and Amy, so we will continue to update this, not only later in the show, but also tomorrow, so stay tuned for updates. Your 7-day is a little brighter, a little milder. We'll talk about that coming up.
Yes, the weekend, right?
Yeah,
you can look forward to that.
A little reminder, winter's still with us. Okay, thanks so much,
Thanks, Ryan.
Thank you.
Wineries in Nova Scotia say a new provincial program aimed at supporting commercial wine producers could cripple the local industry. They say the initiative will use Nova Scotians' tax dollars to pay companies to buy grapes from out of province, potentially causing terrible consequences. Josh Hoffman reports.
It could have a catastrophic effect.
Carl Catino is the president of Avondale Sky Winery and the board chair of Wine Growers Nova Scotia. A dozen farm wineries in the province have signed a letter from the association to the Nova Scotia government calling on them to stop the commercial wine support program. The program would reportedly give $6 to $12 million a year to companies that bottle wine here but buy grapes from outside Nova Scotia or even outside Canada.
The biggest issue for me or for us as an association of farm wineries is that the Nova Scotia taxpayers' money will subsidize the foreign grape production by incentivizing the bottling of imported grape juice in Nova Scotia, and it greatly undermines the Nova Scotia farm wineries.
Stutz says the program would result in wines bottled in Nova Scotia using grapes from outside the province, getting the same preferred markup that local wines get at NSLC locations. She says it would be like the PEI government paying companies to import potatoes from China to make French fries on the island.
My question to the Premier is, why is he using taxpayer money to subsidize the importation of cheap grapes, juice, to compete against those that are actually growing grapes and putting money and their blood and sweat in the soil here in Nova Scotia?
Much of question period on Tuesday was spent on the topic of the new commercial wine support program. Premier Tim Houston says the preferred markups for local wines led to a complaint from Australia to the World Trade Organization against some Canadian provinces, and this new program makes Nova Scotia compliant with international trade law. He says while working on compliance, they looked for economic opportunities.
If you walk down to the liquor court and look at the bottles of wine, 65% of that is bottled elsewhere. It's already on the shelves. It's for sale in Nova Scotia. It's competing with Nova Scotia grapes. It's already here, 65% of it. Quebec has made a big push into the bottling. 21% of the wines sold in the liquor corp are actually bottled in Quebec. I think they should be bottled here.
Opposition leader Zach Churchill said the complaint from Australia was also against British Columbia, Ontario, and Quebec, and they haven't created programs that hurt their local growers. Meanwhile, Nova Scotia wineries are still hopeful the province reconsiders. Josh Hoffman, CBC News, Halifax.
The Nova Scotia government is rejecting 4 out of 5 recommendations made today by the Auditor General. Kim Adair says there is a need for greater accountability when it comes to spending over and above what's in the budget. She says there is a need for greater accountability when it comes to spending. In the past 2 years, Cabinet has approved more than $2.5 billion in additional appropriations, much of it near the end of the budget year. Adair says that kind of spending is not subject to debate in the House. She says the province should return to the legislature to defend this extra spending.
I think it's fundamental to our system of government that every dollar of the public purse goes to the floor of the legislature for debate and approval, because it's almost like here in Nova Scotia, given that Cabinet and Cabinet alone can spend this money and not have to provide a whole lot of detail, it's like a blank check.
Adair is pleased the government has agreed to one of her recommendations, that the province makes sure contracts it signs includes clauses designed to protect taxpayers' money.
The first confirmed baby right whale of the year has been found dead from a collision with a ship. The dead whale was found stranded off Georgia on Sunday. According to the U.S. National Oceanic and Atmospheric Administration, the young whale was first seen in January with serious head injuries believed to be caused by a collision with a vessel, one of the leading threats to the species. This is the second right whale to be found dead with similar injuries within the last month. There are about 360 North Atlantic right whales left in existence.
Well, a peaceful walk along the PEI shoreline turned dangerous for one man late last month.
Andrew Lorimer often walks his 2 chocolate labs along Shipyard Road, but when one dog ventured out onto the thin ice, Lorimer suddenly found himself in danger too.
Now the other dog is being hailed as a hero.
So this is Marley, but we call him Mars. And this is Roscoe, his little brother. Mars is 8 and Roscoe's 2. Well, we go out for our usual lunchtime walk and down in the Shipyard Bay. And this particular day, Roscoe decided to go and investigate the ducks and say hello to the ducks. And I knew at the back of my mind that he was going towards thin ice. And of course, as he went to the thin ice, poof, right through, and he was in the water. And thought, this dog's now in trouble. He's starting to yelp. He's starting to potentially drown. He's in cold water. I'm going to need to do something to save this dog. So I took off across the ice, slipped and slid. Basically, as I went to grab the scruff of the neck, lying flat, the momentum of me pulling, I then went headfirst through the ice into the water. I've now got the scar on my forehead, as you can see. It takes your breath away, how cold it is. Dog splashing around, blood everywhere, fingers all cut. Luckily, I was just tippy-toeing the bottom of the sea, but if it had been deeper, with rubber boots on that were full of water, I might have been in another difficult position. Roscoe was there, so I took him and threw him out. And of course he was safe, Marley was safe, and then I'm in trouble because every time I went to the edge of the ice to try and get out, it would just snap off and break off and I would go back into the water. And I was starting to really panic. And then, out of the corner of my eye, Marley, my older dog, he decided to come across the ice and I couldn't really stop him because I was in the water. And he stopped basically within an arm's length of me. So I just grabbed his 2 front legs. And that was enough for me to ledger myself to actually pull myself out like a seal onto the ice, bleeding and fingers all cut and everything. So this dog saved my life, basically. In hindsight, I maybe shouldn't have gone onto the ice. So that would be the learning for anybody at this time of year onwards where ice can be melting, just to be aware of dangers when you're taking dogs down. I'm not quite sure how I'm going to reward them for that, but it's incredible. Well done, Marley.
I would call Marley a hero for sure.
I'll call him a good boy.
Dog bones
Definitely.
all around. All right, on our way to our first quick break. Stay with us.
Yes, there is a lot more to come on CBC Nova Scotia News. Coming up, the Donkin Dilemma, a look at the risks and rewards of restarting the world's only subsea coal mine.
It's Super Tuesday in the U.S. Voters in 16 states and territories will decide who will run in November's election.
There's a peek at Purcell's Cove today. Ryan is up next with his weather forecast. We'll see you in just a few minutes.
All right, last night in the show, we had the first pictures of the first flowers we know of in Nova Scotia popping through the ground.
Yes.
Any hope for more tonight, do you think?
Well, I don't know. And you said you saw another person in shorts.
Second day in a row, I saw short sightings.
That is a sign of spring around here.
Bare legs in early March.
Brave.
Yeah, brave for sure. But listen, if it was a shorts day today, it's definitely a shorts day tomorrow. Have a look at our highs today. I mean, we were creeping up there. It's in the Halifax area, though, where I saw the shorts. I mean, 3-4 degrees.
That's borderline for
pushing the
sure.
envelope a
That's
little
brave
bit, right?
for sure. 7-8 degrees though in the valley, and you can see Shuttacamp was up to 9 degrees. Temps have cooled off certainly along the Atlantic coastline. Again, keep in mind that right now those water temperatures along the Atlantic coastline are 1-2 degrees, so it's pretty cool air coming right in off the Atlantic, and you can see temps still mild up in the Ingonish Beach, Shuttacamp area. We've got those southerly winds there, but the wind, for the most part, coming off the water for the Atlantic coastline means those fog patches are going to be in the mix tonight, and they will continue into the mix for the most part throughout the day tomorrow as well. And you can see that setup here with that southerly flow that is not going anywhere. Hence why we're mild tonight and throughout the day tomorrow. So as I said earlier, so if this is really just an appetizer, right? We've got 5 to 15 millimeters from this one, certainly wet. We'll be watching that for tomorrow morning. But this is the big meal deal here, which is brewing. And like we talked about yesterday, you want a big system brewing this time of year, you need the two key ingredients, right? You need the warm air, which is working its way up the eastern seaboard, and then you need the cold air. And look out west, minus 13 in Calgary, minus 18 in Edmonton, and Regina at minus 17, even Winnipeg at minus 11. So where we get these air masses clashing, this is where we're getting that system that is really going to start chugging here over the next 24 hours, and that will be impacting us. So let's walk you through the timeline one more time, because, of course, impactful tonight will be the fog patches and, yes, the wet weather, which will linger into tomorrow morning. Be mindful that, yes, some ponding and pooling on the roads early on tomorrow, but expecting that even by the time we get to lunchtime, most of the mainland will have dried off. We're looking at, looking at those periods of rain lingering a little bit longer for Cape Breton. Fog patches will linger certainly through tomorrow morning, but a bit more of a westerly flow to the air tomorrow afternoon. And so that will likely ease the fog patches back after lunchtime for tomorrow. Temperatures with that onshore wind, Yarmouth near 6 degrees, but most of us will be likely in the 8, 9, 10 degree range for tomorrow, and likely cracking 11 and 12 along the Northumberland shore and into the Annapolis Valley. Now for Wednesday night, again, this is when that next round comes in, and this is going to be the significant one. When you see these darker greens, the yellows, the oranges, this is where we're looking at significant rainfall, heavy at times. That's going to be the name of the game through Thursday morning and even into the afternoon, especially along the Atlantic coast. This is where we'll have our greatest risk of seeing rainfall totals exceeding 50 millimeters. And note Amherst here, even by early afternoon, starting to transition. Ice pellets and snow most likely here. Significant freezing rain also possible anywhere from the valley across through the Colchester-Cumberland area to the Northumberland shore and into Cape Breton. And that significant freezing rain will, we'll get that ice accretion, that ice buildup on certainly cars, power lines, and so the potential for power outages is going to be there. And then it will all end as some ice pellets and snow through the Thursday night into early Friday time period. So one more look at this map. Again, in the green, this is where we'll see the heaviest rainfall. Totals possible over 50 millimeters. That significant freezing rain risk is greatest for the north. And then, again, significant snow looking most likely for the Highlands, PEI, but also edging into Cumberland County and then across into New Brunswick. The good news is much quieter, certainly even by mid-Friday morning, but definitely Friday afternoon. Saturday looking spring-like, not too bad. And then we do have another system to watch late Sunday into Monday, Tom and Amy. That one looks more like, we'll certainly see some showers with that, mixing with perhaps some wintry mix in there as well, but not nearly as significant as the system coming in tomorrow, which we will, of course, be updating you on right here on the show tomorrow.
Exactly.
Do stay tuned. Okay, thanks so much, Ryan.
Thanks, Ryan.
Thank you.
Well, up next, would you go underground? The future of the Donkin coal mine remains uncertain. We look at the dilemma facing the company and the community.
Stay with us. You're watching CBC Nova Scotia News. And welcome back. Coal mining has always been a risky business. And they certainly understand that in the community of Donkin on Cape Breton Island.
But a recent close call in the mine there has the provincial regulator putting the brakes on coal production over growing safety concerns. The big question is, what's next for Donkin? It's a place few will ever see firsthand. 3 kilometers out into the Atlantic, a complex network of burrowed tunnels. The Donkin Mine off eastern Cape Breton Island is the world's only operating subsea coal mine. 180 meters down below the ocean floor. Like so many coal mines, a labyrinth of roads that resemble a small, albeit dark city. So complex you need a map to get around the passageways, scarcely as wide as a narrow street. Until recently, 130 miners desperate for good-paying jobs were cutting carbon-emitting coal like their grandfathers before them from a seam that could take them more than 30 years to fully exploit. Now, a string of safety violations and potentially deadly roof collapses threaten lives and the very future of the mine. Over the years, the mine has been shut down again and again, and some argue in this climate change era, this time it should stay closed. Therein lies the Donkin Dilemma. The village of Donkin knows hard times, built by proud generations of miners who accepted the risk of going underground, a gamble some of them lost. People like A.J. Hall's father.
This is a picture, one of the few pictures I have of my dad.
How old is he there now?
I'm going to say he's in his early 30s.
Hall's father died in a Cape Breton mining disaster back in 1979, one of a dozen men to perish.
No man who ever goes into the pit again will have to fear that something like this will ever happen.
A.J. himself would have a close call underground at Donkin. Last July, the roof of the entrance tunnel caved in, the second such collapse in a week, which is what led to the latest shutdown of the mine.
By the time I met up with my crew, they were just then getting everybody out. I probably missed that fall only by 5 or 10 minutes, but that's still not enough to scare me to not go to work.
But some people are terrified that there's going to be an accident at that mine.
There's always going to be accidents. This day and age, you need to make money to live. You have to have a job, you have to have money coming in. So I should be the one that decides what's safe and what's not.
Well, underground coal mining is a very hazardous industry.
To this day, the mine remains closed. Safety at the Donkin mine is the biggest file on Scott Noss's desk at the Department of Labour, where they're tasked with keeping workplaces safe in Nova Scotia.
I can say that the Donkin mine is inspected, the most frequently of any workplace in Nova Scotia. We have set a very high standard, industry best practices, both from the industry perspective as well as the mine engineering perspective, and we regularly ensure that the mine is meeting those standards.
What appears to be a very significant explosion occurred in the underground operations at the Westray coal mine.
Safety concerns in coal mines run deep in Nova Scotia. On May 9th, 1992, a massive underground methane explosion killed 26 coal miners at another mine, Westray. Inadequate ventilation failed to keep the deadly gas at bay, leading to the blast. The company was blamed for rushing production over safety. At the time, some said Nova Scotians would never go underground again.
I don't think any other job I ever had. I went to work wondering whether I was going to come home that night.
Donkin was first dug in the 1980s by the federal government, but never operated because of low prices at the time. The mine was eventually bought by American Chris Klein, described as a flashy billionaire, one of the last coal tycoons. By 2017, he had formed Cameron Coal, a company named for his daughter, and was pushing hard to extract coal. Coal prices were beginning to rise, and if there was money to be made, James Edwards, deputy mayor of Cape Breton Regional Municipality and a community liaison with Cameron Coal, says his community wanted a piece of it.
The industry is there, the product is there, an international developer pumping hundreds of millions of dollars into the Cape Breton economy. With the 150 jobs, they're making $35, $40 an hour. So you've got a payroll of $10, $11 million a year. I mean, that's nice money.
The Department of Labour eventually approved the opening of Donkin. The company hired a former manager of the West Virginia mine that was the site of the deadliest explosion in recent U.S. history. He eventually resigned, but it led to questions about Cameron Coal's commitment to safety at the Cape Breton mine. Gary Ty unsuccessfully tried to unionize the workers at Donkin.
The company definitely did not instill a safety culture at the mine. They cut corners. They did not put proper training in place. They did not maintain proper safe working conditions.
3 weeks into production, a discovery. Turns out the company did not have adequate ventilation to safely handle the methane gas, and the province shut the mine down. Gary Ty asks, how was the mine allowed to open in the first place?
That is an extremely dangerous situation. You're not rendering the methane harmless. You are creating the conditions that could cause a catastrophic explosion, such as was seen at Westray.
That mine did operate for 3 weeks with that substandard ventilation system. Was that an oversight?
Well, I wouldn't say it was an oversight, but as the regulator, we were not aware of that.
When the company fixed the problem and reopened, the list of warnings and violations soon grew. Roof falls became more common. It seemed nothing was going Donkin's way. In 2019, Chris Klein and his daughter Cameron died in a helicopter crash in the Bahamas. And a few months later, after another stop work order, Cameron Coal closed the Donkin mine, citing ongoing roof falls and costly closures. It said its decision was final. There was relief from those who had long argued Nova Scotia should put coal mining in its past and go green, not mine dirty coal. People like Mi'kmaq activist and environmentalist Elizabeth Marshall.
I don't believe in polluting and creating pollution just so somebody could make some money. It's not worth it. And in this instance, in this case, that appears to be what it's all about. It's just the coal mining company wants to earn a few bucks.
But 2 years later, the global price of coal roughly tripled. Cameron Coal had already put a lot of money into the Donkin mine. Extracting more coal was the only way to get it back. The province gave the company permission to reopen the mine. They want to take that coal out of that mine.
Yeah, I'm sure they do. It's money. It's like it may as well be gold.
Lucrative indeed. Even the Mi'kmaq chiefs wanted a piece of the action, signing a royalty agreement with Cameron Coal to mine the coal and put money in the band's coffers. But those roof falls last July, including the one the day A.J. Hall was working, has given the Department of Labor more reason for concern.
Yeah, my reaction was, instant concern for the miners and their families. It could have been a serious situation had miners been traveling in that area at the time of the rockfall.
After the department shut down the mine, a company consultant determined humidity was a key factor causing the roof falls, something the department admitted fell outside the area of expertise of its inspectors. It's since hired its own expert to confirm this. Was it responsible of the province to allow Donkin to operate if your department didn't have the in-house expertise already for a subsea coal mine?
Well, underground coal mining is a very complex work environment. These resources are not easy to procure. But that said, that is why we've used the method of having some great in-house resources experienced in coal mining, and then procure experts when needed.
The province is allowing the mine to operate during the low humidity of winter. And while it did not agree to an interview, we know the company has filed its latest safety plan to operate year-round at Donkin. The province is now considering this.
So, Mr. Premier, we need your help.
Since the latest closure, some miners rallied to put pressure on the government to improve the inspection process, to get the mine operating more quickly after a shutdown.
If another situation happens in the event that they do reopen, that they want it addressed sooner, and they don't want to be closed down for 3, 4, 5, 6 months. So what's the problem?
But no one wants another Westray or another mining disaster on their watch.
Well, and you know what? You just said it too, that Westray has been the elephant in the room with this mine forever. And I'm told that it's apples and oranges by miners and mining inspectors alike, that this mine is nothing like the operation at Westray.
You've never felt political pressure of any kind then?
No, as a safety branch, we are, you know, as a regulator, it's a very important responsibility, and we make sure that we fulfill our duties.
There have been 32 significant roof falls at the Donkin mine. Hundreds of warnings, compliance orders, and penalties issued. Too many for Gary Ty's liking.
The number of them and some of the things that are going wrong tells me there is going to be something catastrophic happen there. There's very good high probability of having some fatalities.
This is the new monument they put up to commemorate all the miners that had lost their lives in 26 back in 1979.
A.J. Hall says he understands the risk, but still feels safe in the mine and wants to go back full time.
That's where you carry your sandwich and your coffee. And
that represents your dad's?
Yeah, that's my dad's.
Do you ever think of your father when you're down there?
I think every day I went down, that's what I thought of. And it was more like, Dad, I'm doing what you did. I hope you're, you know what I mean, proud, and hopefully we can keep going. And I think that's what bothers me about this. No one got hurt in this fall, but yet it's one of the longest shutdowns ever in history of a work stop order.
Tom Murphy, CBC News, Donkin, Nova Scotia.
Coming up, there could be at least one more day of talks for a ceasefire in the Israel-Hamas war. Talks remain stalled over two key issues: the hostages and humanitarian aid.
Welcome back. This is Super Tuesday in the U.S. Millions of voters in 16 states and territories will choose who they want to run for president in the November election.
And right now it's shaping up to be a rematch of the 2020 contest between Joe Biden and Donald Trump. The CBC's Richard Madden has more.
On the Republican side, all eyes are on Donald Trump. Will he have a good night tonight? But even if he does sweep all these states, including the big prizes in California and Texas, he still will not have enough delegates to clinch his party's nomination. That's why the drama is likely on his sole challenger, former UN Ambassador Nikki Haley. She doesn't have the number of delegates to really make a dent in Trump's lead, but she insists that she does have enough support to either challenge him at the party's nomination or continue through. She has the support and she has the cash, but not the delegates. Lately, she's been leaning into the anti-Trump rhetoric, really pushing herself and casting herself as the Trump alternative without the baggage.
I voted for Donald Trump twice. I was proud to serve America in his administration. But chaos follows him. And we can't be a country in disarray and a world on fire and go through 4 more years of chaos. We won't survive it.
Now, Haley says between 30 to 40% of Republicans aren't voting for Trump. That's why she says that she needs to stay in the race. So now it's up to voters.
She should keep going. I don't think she'll win, but I think that she can give us another option, things to think about.
I like Nikki Haley, but I'm more of a Trump supporter. I like his policies. You know, he might be a little brash at sometimes, but, you know, he did a good job as a president.
May I ask you who you voted for and why?
Joe Biden. Age isn't an issue as long as you can do the job.
And while Haley's under pressure to drop out of the race from Trump and his allies, on the other side of the coin, Democratic frontrunner Joe Biden, the president, is expected to sweep all 15 states and really clinch the Democratic nomination, which sets up for a rematch of 2020, Donald Trump versus Joe Biden, something 1 in 7 Americans say they don't want. Richard Madden, CBC News, Fairfax, Virginia.
There's word that there will be at least one more day of talks aimed at establishing a ceasefire in the Israel-Hamas war. Mediators say the most recent talks in Cairo have not delivered a breakthrough, but a Hamas proposal will be presented to Israel. The talks remain stalled over 2 key issues: the hostages and humanitarian aid. Airdrops of aid continued in Gaza today. The U.S., France, and Jordan have all airlifted emergency supplies into the territory. Aid organizations such as Oxfam and UNICEF are sounding the alarm about famine and starvation in the territory. Hamas has refused to release all of the estimated 100 hostages it holds and continues to demand a complete Israeli withdrawal. Israel's Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu has publicly rejected those demands and repeatedly vowed to continue the war until Hamas is dismantled and all of the hostages are returned.
With March break travel just around the corner, health officials across the country are bracing for a rise in the number of measles cases. Reported cases this year have already exceeded the dozen reported in all of last year. 17 cases have been confirmed in Quebec, Ontario, Saskatchewan, and BC combined. More than half of new infections are in the Montreal area and involve children. There are a handful of cases in Ontario and 1 each in Saskatchewan and BC. Today, none have been reported in Atlantic Canada. Infectious disease specialists say a small number of measles cases can escalate to widespread infections, as it has in Europe, where thousands are infected.
A new report suggests more and more Canadians are struggling to pay monthly bills, especially when it comes to mortgage and credit card payments. And as Scott Peterson explains, the problem is acute in Ontario and BC.
What we're seeing from the survey is that higher interest rates are really forcing people into a position where they're unable to pay their bills, and delinquency rates, that's where people are not paying their bills over 3 months, is rising, starting with mortgage delinquency rates. And this is troubling in the sense that there's hopefully some equity built into the homes that people have bought. Over the last 12 months, mortgage delinquency has risen 52%. It's below about 1/10 of 1%, but the trend is clear that it is rising. Delinquency rates in Ontario and BC are particularly high because of higher mortgage costs associated with real estate there. In Ontario, it's up 135% and BC up 62%. A delinquency is when someone hasn't paid their bill in 90 days. Now, younger homeowners under 36 are being particularly impacted, and for those refinancing now, this is part of the problem, that you might be used to lower rates that you arranged just a few years ago, but now monthly payments up $457 on average. And again, Ontario and BC, where it's a little bit more expensive, that can be closer to $700 extra per month on refinancing. Non-mortgage debt, and this is troubling as well. This is credit card debt. This is line of credits, where generally the interest rates are higher on. That is up 29% year over year. Now, it's still in the neighborhood of less than 1%, but again, the trend is that people are delinquent on paying those back. And part of the problem here is our thirst for credit. Non-mortgage debt, higher than all the others, was up 4% last year as we loaded up on credit cards and our line of credit, and it was up by $16 billion in total last year. New credit card growth was up 11% last year. 6 million new credit cards were issued. And part of the problem here is there's a double whammy that, one, we're paying a lot more interest, and it's tougher for a lot of Canadians to pay their bills from month to month, but we're also seeing increased spending, and a lot of that going onto credit cards and line of credits where the interest rates are prohibitive. Scott Peterson, CBC News, Toronto.
Well, Canada's main stock index moved a hair lower today. Here's a look at the markets as we head to break.
For news you can trust, we have the latest on what's happening in your community and a weather forecast you can rely on no matter where you are in Atlantic Canada. I'm Amy Smith.
And I'm Ryan Snoddon.
Join us for Atlantic Tonight.
Right after the National.
All right, we're on the hunt for signs of spring on this program tonight.
Well, warming up, like tomorrow is going to be warmer than today.
Yeah, double digits.
Sign of spring right there.
Yeah, right.
Absolutely.
Okay.
And of course, we had those snowdrops last night on our viewer picture of the day.
Those are flowers, by the way, for those who don't know.
That's right.
Okay.
Yes. Yeah, exactly. Let's clarify. The snowdrops, the flowers.
Yeah.
And tonight, another sign of spring from our viewers. Again, the mailbox is filling up each and every day. This one from Brule Point. Beautiful spot, as we know. Now, this was taken 2 days ago.
Okay.
And you can see the pack ice there pretty thick in the Northumberland Strait, but what a difference 24 hours makes.
Wow. That's amazing.
Not swimming weather yet, but it's encouraging, isn't it?
That'd be a cold dip.
Yeah, we're talking about shorts, but maybe not shorts for swimming.
Maybe not.
Yes, but great shots there. And as we look at our provincial forecast, you can see temperatures 6 in onshore winds tomorrow, but we'll be into the double digits at 10, 11, 12 degrees with those winds that will shift to northwest, Cape Breton, Northumberland shore as we move into the afternoon. So just a heads up on that, you folks there, we'll see a bit of a drop into the mid to late afternoon. Now, there's Thursday, and again, the icons only tell so much of the story because it is absolutely going to be a mess. You can see the rain moving in, the darker greens, the yellows, oranges, that is those heavier periods of rain. And note the snow, significant snow. New Brunswick into PEI beginning on Thursday, really ramping up throughout the afternoon. For Nova Scotia, we go from rain over to freezing rain, even as far south as Halifax. But it looks like kind of the northern half of Nova Scotia is the best chance of some significant icing and ice accretion building up on things like power lines. So make sure, again, we should all have, 72 hours worth of goods for any potential outages, and that's going to be the case yet again.
It's a sign of winter for sure, isn't it?
All right, well, take a look at this, guys. A new exhibit in London features recreations of some of the world's most famous artwork. You might say they're a chip off the old block.
This exhibition is my artwork that I've made entirely out of Lego bricks.
The Art of the Brick exhibition is made up of more than 100 works built with 1.5 million Lego bricks. American artist Nathan Sawa has spent more than 20 years painstakingly gluing and snapping together the little blocks.
He builds his own versions of classical sculptures and well-known paintings, and he creates original works. Shows are also ongoing in Paris, Miami, and Philadelphia.
That's amazing.
Never built with Lego like that. I don't know about you
Definitely
guys.
not.
Impressive. That's it for us tonight. Thanks so much for watching. We'll see you next time.
Good night.
Good night.